Welcome to a award-filled bowl of dude soup. I'm your host, Lawrence. Joining me is James.
Hi, I'm
Elise.
James.
Hello, I'm Elise.
Adam.
I'm professional.
And our special guest, Geoff Keighley. How you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be the special guest.
Yes,
You
the
guys
most
came
special.
on my show, so I feel like I have to.
And we
return the
never
favor.
We were
guests.
just guests.
It's like
Yeah, we were
yeah.
just guests when we came on your show.
We kicked Bruce
but
off
you
so
are
he could
our
be here.
special
Usually
guest.
I'm the guest here.
You're a guest every
All
week,
works
Elise.
out.
Yeah.
Our permanent special guest. This bowl is brought to you by two sponsors, Dollar Shave Club and Movement Watches. You can get your first month of Dollar Shave Club for free at dollarshave.com/dude. And you can get 50% off your entire order today with free shipping by going to movementwatches.com/dudesoup. Hear more about those fine sponsors later and get this thing going. If there's one thing I love, it's combing through old internet junk. Sorry, not junk. Media. Use that word. And man, digging up all this stuff was just fantastic. Simply fantastic. So
People would lose their minds over the simplest cutscene like Old Republic and stuff like that back
it's
then.
getting close to a movie. And then it got two movies, and then everybody realized, oh, maybe this isn't the best thing.
SD footage that used to be on like a VHS tape or something.
Yeah.
Don't put on YouTube.
Betamax in the
Like
back.
exactly.
SmackDown.
Slightly did it.
That-
Oh, there's The Rock. Look
That
at that.
doesn't look too bad.
Oh, that's all right.
Wrestling games have always looked kind of good though.
They're kind of looking worse and worse as time goes on, but still.
So these
yeah,
are all
for-
the winners of the first VGA awards.
Yeah. So for the audio listeners, because that's all sorts of people, we're just watching a rundown of the 2003 Video Game Award winners. And yeah, going back that far, rundowns of all the winners was the only thing I could find. As we get into more recent VGAs, there will be more interesting background media.
Yes.
But for the sake of history and for the sake of the VGAs, so you are executive producer over the Game Awards, whatever
Yes.
form they've taken over the past 13 years at this point.
Yeah, you know, the first video game award show I ever worked on was in 1994.
My God.
I was a kid growing up in Toronto, Canada, and I got invited to work on something called Cybermania '94.
Holy shit!
So you can find this on YouTube.
Oh fuck
Oh,
yeah!
we have
Hosted
to.
by the late Leslie Nielsen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home
This sounds like the
Improvement.
greatest
Leslie
party
Nielsen
I've ever
ordered.
heard of.
I love
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
Jeff. I don't know if you
No,
ordered
incredible.
Canada.
So you did this, and you actually find the whole show. But it's like amazing now to see the people that were presenters. It was like Matthew Perry, Hilary Swank, all these people before they were famous.
Even
Wow.
And Doom was
trouble
one of the
putting
big
together.
winners.
yeah, it
In
was.
software, the original Doom that came out in '94. So there you go. So this is Cybermania '94.
Oh my God,
Ultimate
this
Gamer
is
Awards.
amazing.
Fuck yeah,
You
man!
can see my credit at the
JTT.
end, but,
What did you do on
Yeah,
it?
so I got hired to write the narration for the nomination packages that William Shatner read, and that was my first
Holy
experience with a TBS
shit.
show.
PBS.
So I think I was like 15 years old at the time, in high school, and I got to come down to LA and work on this. Flew down with my dad, and we sat in the audience, and that was like they only did it 1 year, but it was live from Universal Studios Hollywood. You'll see this in a second. It's like Leslie Nielsen, Jonathan Taylor Thomas walking out. You'll see there's like a
That's amazing.
there's actually a Hillary Clinton impersonator
Oh.
on the show, which is appropriate this
wow.
Maybe a callback at this year's
exactly.
Game Awards.
You
Saw
never
the
know.
card,
Stay
right?
tuned. Yeah, so I worked on this, which was crazy. And yeah, you can watch
Why
it
is
on
the
YouTube.
devil
the whole thing.
overseeing the award show.
Yes.
Cyberland. This is awesome.
Yeah, full side. And they had Herbie Hancock perform in the show, and it was just like random stuff.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So how'd you get hired as a
Yeah.
as a
So the guy that
teenager?
produced this was a friend of my dad's up in Toronto who worked with my dad years ago. And at the time, I was like 15. I was writing about video games for a bunch of gaming magazines. And so my dad said, hey, my son's into games. And this guy, Peter Heyman, said, all right, well, do you want to help us sort of write this show? Because we don't, we got hired to produce this award show. We don't really know games that well. So yeah, he basically said, here are our nominees. And then I got to actually like write dialogue that Shatner read for each show. I did that up in Toronto from my bedroom. And then I got to come, one of the prizes was I got to come down to LA
Holy shit.
to check out this award show, which was crazy. But it was so cool to like come down, be a part of it, and like have like the guys from id Software like they're on stage like winning an award for Doom. And this was back when like Philips CDI and 3DO were out.
I was like, you
So
were
we're
probably
allowed,
one of
like,
the
full
few
motion
people
video
actually
games.
recognized
the
the people up there. Like, that's Romero.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like
Yeah.
Romero, Jay Wilbur, all these guys.
Well, that was kind of the birth of rock stardom for game developers.
Totally, because
yeah.
I was like, yeah, it was an amazing
I like-
moment.
I like
These
how they're
guys
like-
came out.
They're like, we need an old man
Probably-
and a young man.
Yeah, spot me somewhere in the audience here. And it was such a random collection of folks that did this, but it just like inspired me. Like, wow, like video games have their own awards show. And then it was, it was a good 10 years until I got involved with Spike when they did the first video game awards. But yeah, this was a one-time experiment There you go. It was
Why
the
are they
first
hitting you
night.
with the
Jeff,
impersonators right
Jeff,
off the
I have
top?
a question for you, a hard-hitting question.
Yes.
How does it feel knowing that when Lauren streams, he's you?
Yeah. You had such a head start. God damn it.
This is where it all began for me. Yeah, so that was like, that's where the whole video game award, and there's this little skag here. He plugs in your computer. And,
Oh wow!
That's heavy duty pyro.
Do you
right?
do you remember like your stream of consciousness sitting in the audience watching
Yeah.
this, like how you were feeling?
I was
being
insane.
there?
It was, again,
I'm really hoping we
so
get a shot of
bad
you at
in
some point.
retrospect.
Yeah.
But this was, it was just cool to be like in a room with all these game creators that I love, and like people wearing tuxedos. And again, like I was a kid who played games in my bedroom, never got to go to any event. Like this was before I even went to E3 or anything. So it's like, I was like absolutely blown away that there was like a stage and lights and people were talking about games, even though it was like total. I even hear like there's so much smoke you can't even see.
Yeah, they didn't really plan that out.
Is that Maya Angelou?
No, that's she was, I forget what game she was in, like a Philips CDI game. It was like, because this was the era of all the full motion video games, so they hired like all these kind of like, B-level Hollywood actors to like star in these
I think-
full motion video
I
games.
think that
And
actress was on Fresh Prince.
I
think she was. I
I'm
think
sure,
she
yeah.
was.
But no, it's all those. Yeah.
Well, like today, so like you'll have an event and there's like the Will Arnett's of the world and stuff where it's like bigger celebrities are like, oh yeah, totally into gaming, and like I think you were mentioned earlier like Matthew Perry and stuff. It's like big Fallout nerd and all this stuff. It's like
He was there.
Yeah, we're at a time now where like being a gamer isn't such a, like most of these people in this audience right now are probably like, I don't know what this Widgemadoo is, but they invited me and I got a free drink, so it's cool. But it's so weird now. You fast forward today and it's like it's not so taboo.
No,
so
not at all.
It's not so alien. It's just sort of like everyone knows what a game is, and on some level. So
Totally.
it's
No, that was
crazy.
the thing is in this show, like I think they struggled to find like people that even wanted to come out and talk about games and be a part of it. And like the idea of doing a 2-hour show about games, like you'll see even here, like the games that are nominated or things like you were like, how would they ever get nominated? And it was, it was insane. And it was now like being around that production as a kid inspired me to think of like, hey, one day maybe we'll have like an Oscars like ceremony for games. And crazy thing is now here we are doing it all by myself in 2016.
So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. So you wrote William Shatner's dialogue.
Yes.
In Cybermania.
Yes. 94.
Graduated up to Spike Game Awards in 2003.
Yeah.
So starting in 2003, were you executive producer at the start?
No. So I went to college, graduated, started doing a lot more writing for magazines like Entertainment Weekly, and then G4 started in 2004, I think. So the first Spike VJs actually just went as an attendee just to kind of check out what they were doing. Wasn't really, I had friends that were working on it, but I sat like at the front table with EA, I remember, and like Madden NFL won Game of the Year. And they made this radical choice to like announce the Game of the Year winner at the start of the show. So it's like the show started with Madden winning. And then they had this idea that if you find the footage of it, there are all these girls that bring these champagne bottles to the table, and the idea was that they were going to accept the award at the table, so they didn't give it on stage. It was kind of a crazy thing, but they did that. And then at the time, G4 was just starting up. So I worked at G4 actually for probably 2 years when they had something called G4ia, which was like their video game awards ceremony.
I believe the flock of seagulls were there.
Exactly. Yes. For GTA. That was a GTA inspired performance.
They didn't
tribute.
age. They didn't. I don't think they looked the way they thought.
No,
they did.
that was
Like,
that
what's
was
20 years
it was.
later?
I think 1 year G4 it was like Dave Navarro hosted, and the other year was I think Jamie Kennedy maybe. 1 year.
Yeah.
I get that mixed up with the Activision press conference.
Yeah, exactly.
I can
The
only
fancy
think
press
back
conference.
as far as Elijah Wood. Was he a host once?
He was on it one
Was
year.
on it,
That was the
yeah.
Wilmer Valderrama year. Sorry, so
Hold on, what is
he
it about
rolled
Game
out.
Awards?
Wilmer Valderrama rolled out on a RC ball, and he came out on stage to open the show, rolling out.
Did the
RC
theme
ball.
play? No.
Yeah. And that show actually, so funny story. That G4ia year was written by the Lonely Island guys, Andy, Yorma, and I forget the third guy. And so all three of them wrote that show because they were gamers. This was before they were Lonely Island or on SNL, but they actually wrote like that whole show that Wilmer Valderrama hosted. Wow. So I did G4 for a while, and then Spike, I got involved with them. I think it was like 2004 or 5. Originally just to host a show which was called Gamehead at the time, which was our first episode was on the Frag Dolls. Ashley was one of the guests, and it was that's where it all began. In
Ashley
September.
Jenkins.
Ashley
For
Jenkins.
those
Exactly.
watching,
Yes,
our
exactly.
Ashley Jenkins.
Rooster Teeth people may know Ashley. So that was 2005, and then that's when I started to get a little more involved in the Spike VGAs at the time, and kind of originally just started as like a consultant, and then became more of a producer, and then eventually kind of grew into I think I was like a co-executive producer the final couple of years of it. But yeah, I probably was like 8 years of VGAs that I really worked on. And yeah, it's like it wasn't perfect, but I learned so much about like what it takes to build a show like this. There's Hilary Swank and Matthew Perry presenting at the Cybermania '94.
He's always been beautiful.
Yeah, it's like, and this is like way back. I mean, it's like, Oscar winner Matthew Perry presenting at a video game awards show. So yeah, I did the Spike thing for 8 years, I guess, which is crazy.
Jeez, I think we've all been to like a handful of them.
Yeah,
in some capacity.
Had the privilege to.
Well, I had the story where I went with my out-of-work actor friend who said, "Oh, I got some tickets to the Game Awards. You want to go?" I was like, "Sure, man." He got paid as an extra to be in the audience when what was the band? Not the New Radicals. One of them. I don't know.
Vertical Horizon?
Maybe. American Rejects or something like that was there while they're
AFI or something.
their pubes were coming out. I think Weezer was there too. But so I was one of the extras sitting on the stairs that they would wheel in.
You'd be a casted extra? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, cool, thanks. He got paid for me being there, I realized. He used me to make an extra $100.
Because you were a real gamer.
But I got to see Kiefer Sutherland from some stairs.
Okay, so that was probably 2008, the year that Jack Black hosted. Yeah. With Kiefer, Weezer, LL Cool J.
It was a good show.
Yeah, no,
I had fun.
The thing is with that, I was always amazed about the amount of money they invested in like doing a big spectacle, and even if the tone of it wasn't necessarily right, or it was kind of people loved to hate it, the fact that they were like investing millions of dollars and like celebrating games on TV, it's like no one else was doing it, and that was when G4 was sort of starting to crater anyways. So yeah, I loved working. I learned so much about it, and even though it wasn't perfect, it was great to like work with everyone there, and a lot of the people honestly that work on the Game Awards from a production standpoint are like people I met through working on those shows. Who they also do the Oscars, but then they also work on Game Awards. So yeah, it was a wild 8 years with many crazy stories.
I always feel like the Game Awards really reflect the time. Like they're a time capsule in that the cyber, I can't remember what they're called now. Cybermania 97 or whatever. That is totally it encapsulates the 90s.
We were all in
right
Cybermania
there.
at one point.
The VGA or the VGAs of the 2000s, like those were the 2000s. Like Samuel L. Jackson being there, like that was, and the way that you do the Game Awards now, tonally completely fits with like I feel like what the industry is like now. I was super pumped. I was in Las Vegas for the first Game Awards we did, because we were doing bonus round there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I watched the Game Awards. We had like worked all day, and then I watched them in a hotel room with a bunch of the guys from like Easy Allies.
Right.
And we were so excited. Like I had a blast. Like we ordered room service and watched the Game Awards, and I had such a good time. And everybody was so excited that like there was still a yearly thing to celebrate games. Yeah. Like and you're still doing it.
Well, that's what really birthed Game Awards, was when it became clear that Spike wasn't going to really continue doing VGAs, and we did a thing you guys probably remember that I hosted with Joe McHale called VGX, which was like this kind of digital version of the VGAs. And they wanted to do another one of those again, and I was like, I don't know. And you said it sort of reflected the times. Like I saw all the success that people were having with streaming, like Rooster Teeth, other people were able to build their own entities, and I said, maybe if I can get all the game companies together, we don't need to be on a traditional TV network. We can actually build a show for this audience on streaming platforms. And it's nothing against Spike, like any TV network would have treated it the same way, about the kind of show that they wanted to do. Like these shows and even VGAs, it was built for this kind of like mythical mainstream viewer that was maybe going to tune in to see, the cast of the Jersey Shore or something. And like we all know, it's like as a community, we want to see like our favorite game creators up there and our favorite personalities. And yes, celebrities where it makes sense. But that was the opportunity I thought I had to like, could we build a show that was like built for gamers first? And I took the risk and said, like, if I didn't do it, I thought the whole idea of a year-end award show was going to go away. So, and that was, Machinima at one point was doing their thing. That went away.
Yeah.
G4, exactly. The
Against
inside
our will,
gaming.
yes.
That was usually VGA weekend, right? There'd be like the inside
Well,
gaming.
you know why they
Yeah.
did that, right?
Yeah,
So we-
everybody's in
stuff,
town.
right?
Because we didn't have to, well,
It's called
we at
swimming
the
in the
time-
wake.
Well, yeah, it was like, they're going to be in town already.
Exactly.
They'll come to our party too.
Opportunistic. Here we go.
Yeah. And it was always a lot of hip, cool salespeople being like, we're going to wine and dine Treyarch. I'm like, the devs aren't going to give you money.
Right. Exactly.
You idiot.
I don't know, but
It was a party, right?
It was always a party, yeah.
It
was
wasn't
very laid
exactly a
back.
celebration of gaming. I
No.
think was the big thing that was missing from those types of award
It
shows.
was a celebration of the fact that we're rich enough to throw a celebration. I mean, to put it as cynically as I possibly can.
I think one year
for
is-
us specifically.
I think it was sponsored. They got it sponsored one year by like Mission Impossible
Yeah.
and then some other game that like never came out. And I was like,
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I mean,
that's the E3
Remember the-
party. Cinnamon Toast Crunch party.
There was the cereal nightclub, and then like ladies in cosplay would walk around and offer
I
you
think you
cereal
just got
shots.
a cheat code, by the way.
oh no.
Oh, good man! Good thing we tuned in. I'm glad I recorded this so I can rewind it.
Oh, it's classic.
I used to buy magazines for cheat codes.
If you're
this was-
watching,
this-
don't take that. It's
This
ours.
was the idea. I think they tried to get like exclusive cheat codes from the game companies that they like revealed on the show. So I think he's reading a code now
Oh.
that you could like enter into the NES version.
People are
Street Fighter or
frantically
something.
writing.
We should do that on the podcast.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
have
Oh,
a
yeah.
scroll.
We
Funny
had
story.
I'll just
Will
look it up on
Arnett's
Keep
actually in one of these. If you keep watching, you'll see
What?
Will Arnett.
Like as a
Arnett?
child
yeah,
or?
yeah, as a kid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's really interesting. I mean, we were kind of talking about it. I don't know how much it appears to be, but I don't know how much Cybermania '94 had it. But like, there
Call
was
it Lord.
almost
the help
a
one?
tone
Oh,
of
no.
casting. You were trying to cast gamers.
Yeah.
But now it's progressed to the point where people are just so open about being a gamer, and it's just such a
Right.
mainstream thing that it's like, hey, if you're interested in this kind of subject matter, come out.
Oh, totally. That used to be exactly like, let's find gamers, let's cast gamers. It's in the era, as you said, Lisa, like the 90s kind of hip, MTV, TRL. It's like,
We're
everything had to be
skateboarding there, guitar stings everywhere.
Exactly. It had to be
it was
like super radical and cool.
Yeah,
It was like gaming was, it was sort of alternate culture. And now it's like, you're right, like gaming is just like mainstream. It's like everyone plays games, and it's more about like the artistry of it. Like one of the things that's really important to me with Game Awards is like we treat it like art, and like we talk about like the great stories in games and the way they like emotionally move you and things like that. It's all a part of what the experience is. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing what we do.
It is Paul
Yeah,
Reiser.
that's Paul Reiser on a
For
monitor.
I was always kind of curious,
It's
though,
my
like
whole thing.
in the years that you've done this, has the nomination process always been sort of the same? Do you is it like the Oscars where you say, let us know if you want to be nominated, or do you just pick what you want to
No,
pick?
so that's one thing that is unique, I think, about Game Awards is some award shows they go out and you have to like pay a nomination fee and submit your game. No, we just go to like all the top publications that vote, and we're excited that we had Funhaus in this year. You guys voting as well.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
We're
know
gonna
we could talk about
I
that.
could
think
say
of
that.
that
We could talk
pool.
about that.
Think of that pool.
Whatever. I'm angling on that trending gamer.
Can we
inside
say
sources.
we are trying to push Lawrence for trending gamer?
true.
Okay, well.
Is it okay to
I
nominate?
think there's a
him?
conflict of interest there.
Hey, get the rules.
That's what Greg Miller said the same thing to me. It's like, can I vote for myself? I'm like, you can.
Oh, man.
Like, yeah,
A
Jeff
true trending gamer
Jeff
wouldn't,
Gertzman from
but-
Giant Bomb was on
You
the
guys
panel the
should.
first year, and he got nominated. So yeah, we basically we tell game publishers who's voting on it, but yeah, there's no submission. People just vote because you play games all year. Sometimes they'll the voting publications will get like advanced copies of games that get sent, a couple weeks early, just like Oscar screeners go out and stuff like that to voters for some of the November games. But yeah, people just vote on like their favorites of the year, and then we collate that all together and announce nominees.
That's kind of how we did it for years, where
Oh,
it
man.
got really frustrating because we'd sit in an office for 3 days yelling at each other.
Right.
And Lawrence was always saying, like, he would say, like, Lollipop Chainsaw is a great soundtrack. And half the people in the room, like, I didn't play it.
Yeah.
And Lawrence is like frantically on YouTube trying to find a
Yeah.
clip. And
Don't
everyone's
listen to a
like,
clip
we're
for
moving on,
5 seconds.
Skyrim
Now
wins.
you're-
And he's like, how does Skyrim win?
No, it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For voting for games, because like movies, most people, like if you're in the academy, like you tend to be able to see most of the big movies and make an evaluation. In the gaming world, it's like one person. There's no way you can really play like all these 50-hour RPGs and games throughout the year. So that's why we try and do it by publication. So collectively amongst all you guys, you probably have an opinion. Same thing with a lot of the other outlets. Because
Sure.
one person, it's really hard to play everything out there.
Well, it's like, how do you differentiate between, like, okay, Overwatch doesn't truly have a story. There's lore and stuff, but then, like,
All the supplementary content.
does a story really make a game?
Yeah.
Like, who's to say? And it's a weird thing that there is like a perceived sort of thing of like, I guess you put something out there like Portal or Witcher and be like, this is the best game of all time. It's like, well, maybe to some people, but then to others, like, maybe Doom is the best game. I don't know. It's so crazy.
That's part of the debate and discussion. And one of the things that I think has evolved too is we used to be very genre focused in terms of like best action game and best RPG and best strategy game. And we still have those categories, but one of the things we do with Game Awards is like, let's talk about like different sort of creative traits like best narrative or best art direction or best sound design. Because I think sometimes that allows you to sort of compare games better because, like one of the things we have with genre categories, there'll be years where it's like, it's not a great year for fighting games, and like you can't even find 5 nominees because like there are only 3 games that came out. Whereas in the action genre, like this year, there like have been so many shooters. It's like hard to even like, you can't even fit the best games into 5 because there are probably 7 good ones. So yeah, it changes.
So what Adam was saying, like
not my booking this guy. This guy will not be back.
There's so many categories that are such gray areas. Like with best story, like a game like Overwatch, I know the category specifies like best in-game narrative,
right?
But Overwatch has so much supplementary content that builds all those shorts that build all the narrative. And then I know that like, there's always like very specific language that feels gray. Like I remember at game trailers, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. We wanted it to be like a best platformer. And I forget who was I don't know if it was Kyle or somebody was like, well, Toad doesn't jump. He doesn't jump in the game because his backpack's too heavy with all of his adventuring gear. So it's not a platformer because he doesn't jump. He's traversing platformer. I'm
on the I think that's totally a platformer.
I think Captain Toad is a fucking platformer. It's one of the best platformers ever made.
But if it's not that, then what genre is it, right? And that's the things we always get. Like people are like, Dishonored, like, is it action adventure? Is it RPG? Like, because all these genres blend together now, right? And it's like, oh, well, there's a little character progression, so that's an RPG if you can do upgrades. But it's like,
it's like trying to give an Oscar to a Bollywood film. Like, I mean, I guess Oscars don't sort into comedy or drama or whatever, but like
they don't, right?
They like Bollywood films are like, we got a dance sequence. It's a love story. It's also an Indian Civil War picture as well. Like it's a period piece. It has every single genre all mixed in. Gaming is like so broad. Lots of games have so many feature sets and ways to tackle it. And like you could say theoretically, Dishonored is a puzzle game,
right?
If you really wanted to.
Absolutely. That's like genres. It's hard to break it down, and also when you think of like different games for different folks as well, because there's some games that like. People play multiplayer only, they don't even care about the story or lore. And then other people want to, all they care about is Uncharted and like the characters and the emotion of it. And other people are like, no, I just want to play like Call of Duty multiplayer. And that's what I want in my game. So it's like to some people, that's, maybe not Call of Duty, but it's like, multiplayer game is their game of the year. And other folks, it's like all about, the amazing culmination of Nathan Drake's story in Uncharted 4. So yeah, that's part of the healthy debate.
Thank you.
And then other people, it's like, their favorite game of the year is something they play on their phone. Like Clash Royale, like that's their game of the year. That's what they play the most.
Well, it's like very different. Pokemon Go.
Exactly.
Some
you could argue Pokemon Go should
probably the biggest game of the year and has probably already been forgotten. It's weird thing, or like the NES coming out again.
The NES Mini.
Classic NES.
So it's such a strange thing.
The thing that does what a Wii U does, but less, and yet people are still ridiculously.
It's so tough for us because we at the end of the day we want to focus on like the state of the video game art, like the games that are like pushing the medium forward, and that comes in a bunch of different dimensions. They're great story games, they're great multiplayer games, they're great like audience expanding games. I would say like Pokemon Go. Like in the summer when we were all walking around and we saw hordes of people playing Pokemon Go. It makes you realize like how powerful games can be. But then like that happened for 2 weeks and then like nothing.
So
where are we now?
Is it weird that I judge somebody if I see they're still playing Pokemon Go? I don't know.
There's a one guy on Santa Monica Pier.
That's why you're the trending gamer.
That's right. I'm master trends right here. Let me tell you about another trend, shaving. Because we got a sponsor of Dollar Shave Club for this podcast. So yes, thank you, Jonathan Taylor Tom.
He doesn't even shave.
Yeah, he doesn't have to. But if you're a trending gamer like me, you might find that you have to shave every 3 days, as an adult man usually does. So Dollar Shave Club sponsors this podcast. You're probably familiar with their razors by mail service. Basically, you join the club and then they send you a variety of male health care kits every month. They can include things like artisan soaps. I don't know if soap can be artisan, but it certainly was when I put it on my body because I smelled fantastic. They have something called shave butter, which is like shave cream, but not as thick. So it lubricates your face and doesn't gum up your blade. It's fantastic. They also sent me the executive blade, which has 5 blades, weighs about 20 pounds. My arm's shaking by the time I'm done shaving. That's actually a lie. It's very light and easy to use. But it actually shaves too well. Now I have to get into the exfoliation game like Elise was talking about. Keep meaning to buy some product, but I just don't. I can't don't know. I'm conflicted with myself. Would the trending gamer wear exfoliating products on his neck?
I mean, that's tough to call.
Just say yes
you
so I can
are
go buy
you
it.
are on top of the trends more than anyone, so you would know.
You're right. I was just asking you as a test. The answer is yes because I'm going to do it and I'm the trending. Anyway, you can join the Dollar Shave Club for free for 1 month. All you have to do is pay shipping by going to dollarshaveclub.com/dude. Once more, that's dollarshaveclub.com/dude for a free month. Just pay shipping. Thank you, Dollar Shave Club, for your sponsorship. And so, Geoff, you actually mentioned something really interesting. So here's my big game plan right now. I'm gonna make you seem like the good guy, and then I'm gonna slam dunk you hard.
Good.
So you were talking about how you wanted to
ready.
celebrate games as artistry and everything like
You're
that.
never gonna get trending gamer.
Revise the balance.
One thing, there was when VGAs went independent.
Yep.
I guess it was shortly after. There was an article in the New York Times.
Yep.
That I pulled up, and there was I've heard this anecdotally, and this article referenced it as well. But let's see here. Here's the quote. The event is a tribute to the tenacity of Mr. Keighley, who risked more than $1 million of his own savings to finance the first show last year.
Yep.
And then I've heard like mentions of you putting your own money into production since then.
Yep.
So I don't know how
Lawrence
transparent you want to be
have
about
some
that. Yeah, I have no money. But to what degree are you personally invested in these production?
It is all me. I went off independently and said, hey, I want to do this, and use a lot of the money I'd made over the years doing TV stuff to sort of roll this back into building the show. Now, to be fair, when I did that, I certainly had like all the game companies say like, we want to support you and like be a part of it. So yeah, we didn't take investment dollars from the gaming company. Some people said, hey, you should just go get everyone to fund it. And it was important for me that the show was independent. But yeah, I felt confident when I went out and did it. Everyone was telling me, you got to do this, Geoff. We're not going to have a show this year. Go make it. But yeah, I risked a bunch of money to say we're going to fund the first show, do it myself. And then I went around to all the game companies and sponsors to try and get people to sort of recoup that money. But yeah, it was super scary to like go out and say, I'm going to do it. And now there's lots of live streaming around, it's not a foreign idea now, but like 2 years ago, the fact that we were going to like air it on YouTube and Twitch and not on TV, a lot of people were like, oh, well, that's not cool anymore. It's like, if it's not on TV, like it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
There's a certain stigma.
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
online only.
1000%. It's like, oh, this isn't mainstream anymore. It's like, this is just, a YouTube show.
The irony being that more people will watch it online than on
That's what we found, right?
Yeah.
And when we did it online, we went global, so everyone around the world got to watch it. There was tons of conversation around it. But yeah, definitely, I had to...
what's Escape from Cyber City?
I think that's a
Lawrence,
Philips
I need you to pay
CDI
attention.
game.
Oh, that's a video game.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I felt so bad for you, Geoff. I'm sorry. I saw that pop in. I'm like, Lawrence is going to point that out.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm looking at it.
You have Lisa
Mark
from,
Voorhees from
Lisa.
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell.
Quit bragging, Geoff.
Exactly. All the big stars. Exactly. If only you were there, Lisa.
Man.
She's reading from her Newton. Yes.
I'm sure Elise was probably, if you were born by then.
Oh, no,
from
I
Cyber City.
wasn't.
But yeah, so I risked a bunch of money to do it for year one and have continued to be like independent and like distributed across all the platforms, work with everyone. And yeah, it's scary. Like even this year, it's like you go into it and say, hey, like there's gonna be a lot of money on the line and you just have to start from square one. But it's really scary, but it's also really liberating that like I can make the show that like I want to make. And it's like, I'm the ultimate say. And part of the challenge I think with something like VGAs was always that when you get a show that big, it's made by committee. And it's like, it's not just me, it's like a bunch of network executives and producers and everyone giving opinions. And I started to, it's natural that you want to like own it yourself and make it your vision. So if you want to do that, you sort of have to invest in yourself. And then it was nice after the first year that I think people really, responded to the tone of the show and what we did. So it made it worth it. And yeah, now, I don't think about like, are we going to do it next year? It's like, hopefully we can keep doing it for decades to come. And build on that. And I always want it to be independent. Like you're not going to read a story about how, I sold the awards to someone. Like I want it to be independent.
Lawrence will
Trending
have
games.
to say about that.
Give it to the
by
trending
the way,
game
he
of the
needs
year
about
gets to take it
50
over.
bucks.
Exactly.
You can lend me $100.
Yeah.
I got to get home. So it's interesting. I think you very diplomatically and indirectly kind of took the fire out of me dunking you into the dumpster. But
Oh, please walk away if you want.
so on the same article, you yourself had a quote that I'm going to read to you just to make it very meta and weird.
Okay.
You said, quote, some people say that speaking of the amount of like exclusive trailers reveals that are / used to be in the VGAs. Your quote is, some people say that makes the show too commercial and it should be purely about awards. I found that for this audience, you need to blend the two. And certainly in the past, a lot of people have taken exceptional issue to how promo heavy the awards seemed. If I were to read into what you just said, it almost sounds like it was the creative direction of other producers or other influencers that made it so promo heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at the end of the day, it's a business and a show that you have to fund, right? So like, yeah, back in the days of Spike, I mean, there were a lot of like brands with like, Mountain Dew and Pontiac and all these other companies that were sort of, brand, like the most addictive game fueled by Dew, I think, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, that's the nature of these shows, that you have to go out and find sponsors. You kind of hope that you're going to have like the right sponsors step up, but you have to sort of figure out how to fund it. And even for me, like it's, there is a commercial aspect to this show. And even in terms of like the trailers and the world premieres, some purists will say this should just be an awards show. It shouldn't have any future looking games or announcements. And my response to that is like, I don't think that would work. And, with all due respect to like the DICE Awards or BAFTA or GDC, like those are great shows, but the viewers for those are in like the thousands, and it's basically for the people in the room. It's not a mass consumer experience. So if I saw those other shows with people, millions of people watching them, then I'd say, well, we don't need the announcements. But I think that's a big part of the show, that like some of the best creators in the world are coming to that stage to show you the future of like where games are going to go next. And I think that's sort of the nature of our kind of club, is that people want to like remember their favorite games of the year, but we also want to like look forward and see like what's next and get excited. So that's what drives the viewership.
Yeah,
is like that few, Psychonauts getting revealed.
I was going to add into that. Like I was lucky enough to be at the Game Awards last year, and the highlight for me was the announcement of Psychonauts, a game that may not be out for the next.
Thank you, Adam, for getting that game off the ground for us. All your enthusiasm.
I don't know if we maybe told this story, but the day before, James and I were in Raleigh doing this thing with Lawbreakers. It was like an early kind of like a preview event, but sort of like we didn't do any like content. It was just sort of like, hey, we want to pick your brain.
Just play it.
And we're like, cool, yeah, totally fine. And we went out to lunch, and Cliff Blazinski is just like, oh yeah, Psychonauts 2, that's gonna be the Game Awards tomorrow. And we're just like, James
he
like,
absolutely did not say that. He said he just mentioned the game Psychonauts 2.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's weird that you would mention a game that's never going to exist.
Right.
I didn't call him on it, but I was like, I
think we were talking about Kickstarters or something, and he goes, oh yeah, Fig, Psychonauts 2 is gonna do that, and James just kind of did like, huh?
Yeah.
James being a huge
But
Psychonauts
then
fan.
obviously 24 hours later, we were at the Game Awards,
Yeah.
and then there was an actual announcement.
Yeah.
But so it's, I mean, kind of to what you're saying about the looking back while also looking forward. Most of the people there have played most of the games, and they've kind of developed their own opinions. And awards are always a great way to kind of be like, here's a great consensus. We've, as gamers, as lovers of entertainment, have all come together to give this game our praise, right? But there's so much to be said for being excited for what is to still come, because you may have played Uncharted 4 this year, but who knows what's going to come out next year.
We like to be hyped. I mean, the same reason why people, go to Comic-Con to see the new trailers, or it's like, oh, this movie trailer came out, like I can't wait to go see it. Like that's part of the culture, is these creators like inspiring us with where they're going to want to go. So that's a commercial aspect of the show, which I think is exciting. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, we do have to pay for the show, and like that's where sponsorships come in. And we do the Game Awards sales. People get like discounts on games, which is really cool, and the nominees. But we mention that in the show. So yeah, I mean, look, I get that people will always see the Game Awards as something that is like commercial and mass appeal, right? And look, like the way we do the show, the millions of dollars we spend with the stage and the set and all that, like that's important, I think, for the industry to have that spectacle. And, we could also give out the awards on a green screen stage and, spend no money on it. But I think, I'd much rather be able to do something really big and bold on the set, and that costs money, so we do have to have sponsors. And yeah, hopefully we balance it in the right way. But yeah, it's something we think about a lot. And if other people have better solutions, I mean, the other thing is, I guess I could, run a Kickstarter for it every year and have the audience fund it, and then we have no sponsors. But I feel like I like the idea of it being free and accessible to everybody, and finding partners that really want to like help us grow the show. And that's what's been cool, is a lot of the brands that get involved now, they come to us and say like, hey, what could we do that would be cool for this audience? Like help guide it. So yeah, we'll see. But it's definitely like I totally take the criticism, but it's this show is a balance between kind of awards and marketing, but I think it can be good marketing this audience responds to.
There's a certain thing, and we deal with it a lot at Funhaus, like where it's where do you draw the line between being a business and then also just serving your audience, and it's really tough. And we found, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, the people that are the most vocal at complaining about those sorts of things, why are you charging for this, or why are you asking for me to sponsor you with that or whatever, are generally the people who have ad block on anyway.
Yeah.
Like, and the people who get it, the people who are like, oh, okay, well, if I don't watch the ad, Funhaus doesn't exist.
Right.
Like, they have generally no problem with it because they understand
Yeah,
the
no,
balance.
it's like you have to understand the circle of life, and the thing that matters the most to me, honestly, is to have like these game creators who have worked so hard all year to like have a big spectacle for them, so when they come out, they feel like their work is appreciated. And that to me is like why we spend the money on the set and the design and the pomp and circumstance of it, is like give back to these people who like are heroes to me and you, who devote their lives to entertaining us. So, if we have to do a little marketing as part of that, then so be it. And people will troll us and complain about this and that, but it's like, if they have a better solution, let me know. But we're just trying to make it all work.
Jeff, so I'm sidetracking here for a minute. I'm always trying to get the scoops from you.
Yes.
You know that. The last time I saw you, you told me you had a Nintendo Switch in your car. I still don't know if you were fucking with me or not on that.
I was lying. I wish.
Kojima was not at last year's Game Awards because of the situation with Konami and everything.
Yes.
Can you talk about whether he will be at this year's Game Awards, or is that still?
We sure hope he's going to be there. We've invited him, and honestly, one of the big goals of this year was to like figure out how could we get him there this year to be a part of the show, because last year was heartbreaking. So no official announcements yet, but our hope is certainly that he will be involved in the show, because honestly, part of what motivated me this year was the belief that we needed to be back on like the same stage, have the same production level, so he could be there to sort of see the excitement from the audience now that he would be allowed to come to the show. So yes, consider his invitation submitted.
This is kind of a good segue from that. I'm curious, going from 15-year-old Jeff at the Cybermania, we are, I think, lucky enough to kind of be involved in the industry, right?
Yeah.
We've gotten to meet really cool industry people, developers that we respect and admire. I feel like you are in deeper.
Are you getting up to the Geoff Keighley Power Hour story?
What? What's the Jeff Keighley Power Hour?
We'll see where this goes.
Tell me all your secrets.
What do you have, Trending Gamer? What's on that laptop?
Are you talking after E3?
No.
I was just gonna ask what it's like, because you're almost like Illuminati has a negative connotation, but you're in deep like I said,
people figure.
A personal relationship with Hideo Kojima and stuff like that, and so how does it feel for you going from being a 15-year-old kid to now? You don't even get to see the announcement for Psychonauts,
right?
Like you watched it.
I helped make it happen.
When you were talked about it and you helped plan it. Like, how does that?
Yeah, no, I mean that's actually sort of true with Psychonauts. Was that it was trying to help Tim get that together, and at one point they're like Notch was maybe going to invest in it. We weren't sure, and Tim and I worked. I mean, I've been a huge fan of Tim's since the early days of Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, and stuff like that. But yeah, look, it's so fun that the people that I met, 20 years ago are like still in the gaming business. And that's what's exciting about it, is like people that I've, like Kojima, I remember going over like shortly after 9/11 to visit him. I just graduated from college, like when he was finishing Metal Gear Solid 2, and like hang out with him in Tokyo. So it's just been nice to like develop these relationships with people over the years. And I think we sort of help each other out. And like those developers want to come to the show and like showcase things, and hopefully, believe that we're going to treat their work with sort of respect, and like it's an honor to have like Tim say, hey, I want to come and announce Psychonauts 2 at your show. So yeah, it's it's really fun to be able to build the show with these people and have them back me, and that gave me the confidence to do Game Awards. Everyone said like, you got to do this, Jeff. We'll be there for you. And the cool thing about like games, and the reason I stay in this business, is that people generally, when they say they're going to be there for you, they are. And that's like what's awesome is like all these executives and creators like are pretty honorable, awesome people. And that's why like I've never left games. I've never had any other job.
When was the last time anything surprised you though? Because I remember we were doing the E3 show.
Oh, announced it was?
A couple years back,
Yeah.
like before Last Guardian came up, you were like a psychic going, Last Guardian.
Yeah, look, it's I'm trying to think of the last thing that totally surprised me. It's hard because especially even around E3, like I tend to know what most of the companies are doing with their announcements because they'll be booking people to come on our show and stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to think of the last game that I was just like sort of completely shocked with. I mean, it was, years ago, like I remember being blown away at like the PS3 reveal, some of those games, like the Killzone trailer, the CG piece, like things like that. I remember being sort of like shocked by. But yeah, it's rare now to be like completely surprised, but it's also, sometimes I'll know about something, but I won't know how it looks. And then you'll like see the trailer. So even like at E3, like Death Stranding, like I sort of knew Kojima was probably gonna do something, but I hadn't seen it in advance or knew what it was gonna look like. So when you finally see it, you're still blown away by it. So there's definitely an element of wonder, but yeah, the total like shock of like, I had no idea this game was coming. It's rare now, but it's honestly like, it's more about like, what are they doing? And when I saw the Death Stranding trailer, I was just blown away, and like the artistry of that and how that came together, like that was still a moment. So yeah, it's not as many surprises, but it's honestly now it's hard to like surprise people because
everything leaks.
Yeah, and it's like games are so different than like any other medium, like a movie. You can't like, be a year into production on a movie and nothing's gonna leak. Like people will know about it. And even like J.J. Abrams has tried it with, like Cloverfield stuff or whatever, but it's really difficult. So games, it's like, even the fact that someone is doing a game doesn't necessarily take away from the moment. Like the fact that Rockstar was doing Red Dead Redemption 2, I think people sort of like assumed that was what they were gonna do. So it wasn't shocking that they were making that game, but still when you see it, you get excited about like what it's going to be.
I feel like to your point about anticipation, healthy anticipation being part of the process. I think part of that is the gamer audience willingly plays dumb sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can read between the lines and say, yes, they're making Red Dead 2. But it's just like, oh, are they going to announce it? Oh, there it is.
Well,
like,
you kind of just do the math between games.
Of course.
When you look at franchises and you go, okay.
If you boil it down, it's not hard to make those calls, especially if you start to look at the business aspect of things, how much money certain properties make, how quiet certain studios have been for how long. Yeah, it's not
but
that hard to figure out.
It's like exciting to think about, like, well, when like Rockstar did that trailer, it's like, well, which characters are in there? How does that relate? Is it a prequel? Is it not? Like, those are the kind of things that are interesting to discuss. Not about like, does this game exist? Because you're right, we're in a world where like, if something's relatively successful, you're probably going to see another one of those at some point.
And especially if that studio, like the San Diego studio or anyone's been really quiet since this behemoth GTA 5 came out. It's like, yeah, they're probably not doing Bully.
Right. Or some new IP, it's like they're probably going to go back to that. So that's the type of stuff that is fun. And look, I always hold out hope that certain games I want to see made like are getting made in secret, and they've been, like even like Valve. I love Valve, right? I've spent a lot of time covering them, and it's like you hope that all of a sudden there's going to be this big new epic game that they're going to reveal. But it's like I don't make the games. That's always like with Game Awards. People always, wonder like, how good are our announcements going to be or not? And like, of course we ask for everything, but it's like sometimes those games don't exist or aren't ready. Or even there are times with games where it's like, we think they're going to be ready to show, and then they call me, a month before the show and say like, we're not ready, sorry, push it off. So it's, there's surprises in that regard where you think you have something and then you don't.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to be on time for this year's Game Awards,
There it is.
make sure to get a watch through Movement Watches. These are classy, minimalistic watches that start at $95 because they are sold directly through the internet. So there's no store and markup, no MSRP added, just like the Game Awards direct to you, the
So
game
commercial.
connoisseur/consumer. So they figured out that by selling online, they could cut out the middleman, avoid the markup. They're nice watches. I like minimal watch faces, so you got some hands. And also, people assume you're smart if you can tell analog time. You don't have to, but if you're wearing one of these, people assume you can, and then you get your pound of power. So get 15% off your watch today with free shipping and free returns by going to movementwatches.com. Quick note, that's spelled MVMTwatches.com /dudesoups. That's movementwatches.com /dudesoup. 50% off your watch order today with free shipping and free returns. So class up your wrist a little bit. Thank you, Movement.
I just fixed mine because of daylight savings time.
Nice.
Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, Jeff, I have a couple of challenges for you.
Okay.
A couple of challenges. Some of them are easy, some of them are difficult.
Okay.
Challenge number 1.
Yes.
Speaking of your Kojimas and your Schaefers, given the sort of video game Illuminati, I believe was the term that James threw out, and absolutely intended every connotation associated with that. I want you to lay on me your most star-studded, name-droppingest, party-haltingest story you can possibly conjure up in your years of video game work.
I got one.
Oh,
Wow. Not with Kojima, just with anyone that
anyone.
was blown away.
Biggest name, biggest group of names.
Who are you most starstruck?
Yelling
by,
out of a
is what you're
limo.
We just want a crazy story, Jeff.
Howling
That's
at the
the facade
I
we
think
called
what's
you on
been
the
like
show.
crazy. I mean, it's like taking Kanye around E3 was pretty wild a couple years
yeah.
ago. Got to like escort him around and like go to all the booths and stuff like that.
Did you direct him, or did you just kind of follow wherever he happened to go?
He sort of like, the thing is he really knows games. So he's like, oh, I want to go check out Street Fighter 5. I want to like head on over to like, see Battlefront. And like he like, it was amazing. Like even, we were walking through the Nintendo booth and like all of a sudden Miyamoto was there. And like Kanye is like, well, I didn't know you were going to be here. And it's just like, that was an amazing moment of like Miyamoto and Kanye to sort of like meet and things like that happened. So like, those are types of things which are really surreal to me to have like someone like that who like legitimately wanted to be at E3. Like he wasn't there because like his publicist said it'd be a good look for you to go do that. Like he really like wanted to check out VR and the games and like spent a full day at E3 walking around the crowd. So that was like really cool. And he was like, I was amazed what a big gamer he is. And like he I think he's told this story before, but when he was growing up in Chicago, like before he got into music, he actually dreamed of becoming a game designer and like went to school, like in art
that's
school
why he's
to like
making the
learn
Angel
about
game
games.
about his mom.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's like, that's all like ties together. So that was a pretty surreal, that's news to me, a Dennis Miller 3DO game.
Wow.
A full motion video
We
revolution.
need to get these.
This is what Kanye saw that inspired him.
This is where it all began. So so that was a pretty surreal, awesome moment, not just for me, but for the gaming industry, because the amount of coverage that got, and Kanye as a brand, whether you like him or loathe him, when he does something, people pay attention to it. So the fact that he came to E3 and put a spotlight on our industry by doing that was a pretty special moment.
Okay, you've passed challenge number 1.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
So challenge number 2.
Yes.
You've been nothing but constructive, happy, building everything up, celebrating throughout this entire podcast. I want you to get upset at one thing. I don't care how irrational, small, or dumb it is. What do you hate and wish you could erase from this planet?
Is this a new segment on Dude Soup
It
called
might
Jeff
be.
Rants?
What do I hate
Jeff Rants.
This
in
is
the
all new
gaming
to
world?
us, Jeff, so I'm sorry.
Give me an old game or
the
something.
thing that I always would kind of grinds my gears this time
settle
of
down.
year. Exactly. Like the thing that upsets me always this time of year is like we try and do something like Game Awards, we bring everyone together, and there's always like some developer or someone who thinks they're sort of better than the show, like we can do things ourselves and like we don't need like a big entity like Game Awards to talk about our games. That's something that, it's more of a macro story about like how people use the media or don't use the media. But that's the thing this time of year, which always upsets me, is that people are like, we don't need to bother coming, or your award show, like it's not, the voice of the consumer anymore because you have, the press and the media and influencers voting on it. So that's the kind of stuff that always like pisses me off a little bit, is like this time of year, there are people that sort of always like to complain about stuff. Or even honestly, we're just about to announce the nominations, and there will be people that will like, actively like complain about like the nominations and stuff. And it's like, I don't even vote on them, but it's like people take stuff really personally, right? And that's like, I get it, and it shows that they really value the awards, but it's amazing that like how frustrated people get. And it's like, it's a runoff, right? So inevitably they're going to be winners and losers. So that's always like difficult, I think, this time of year, because you want everyone to be happy, and then there are people that sort of ultimately get upset. So
I have another Jeff Rants question.
Yeah.
Is there any universally acclaimed or loved game that you don't understand why people love it, and you did not care for it, but like, or unless you generally find the good in all games? I feel like people that love games,
there's certain stuff that like, I'll be the first to admit that like a lot of MP stuff I just don't have the time to play anymore. So it's like, when I was growing up as a kid, like I loved like playing Duke Nukem 3D with my brother, or Descent, or like all these old games. But now it's not that I don't get it, I just don't have the time to throw into a lot of the like MP sides of games. So I tend to be more of a story guy, because I just like to jump in, have an experience, move on from that. But I'm trying to think of stuff that people get. I don't know, like a lot of the there's some RPGs that are hard for me to get my head around, like even Final Fantasy stuff. I've never really been a huge Final Fantasy person, but I get why people like love that franchise. But yeah, I'm trying to think of a game like this year that everyone's like all about, and I just don't understand.
We'll just go ahead and say Last of Us.
Yeah,
Last of Us. We'll go ahead and say Last of
I
Us.
was going to say, if you're a single player story guy, some of the more divisive, like basically the David Cage entries.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where you fall on those personally, but those tend to be a little divisive.
I mean, like, Heavy Rain I thought was pretty cool. There were elements of that I liked. Beyond was sort of, I didn't actually fully play through that. But that was kind of a little all over the map. Look, and it's, I don't know. Yeah, there are games. I'm trying to think like this year, if there's anything that I sort of played and I didn't fully get.
We discovered this one called My Summer Car, which is this indie darling right now. But it's so it's like you're in what is it, like Norway, 1994?
I think it's Finland.
Or Finland,
Yeah,
and
Finland.
it's like and you're during the time of the Cyber Awards.
Cyber Awards.
You're
Cyber
It's
Awards.
at the height of the
Cybermania era.
it's a weird kind of like pseudo survival game, but all you're doing is putting an engine together
Okay.
and like building a car. But it's like piece by piece, like you're literally putting the pistons
God.
in. You have to get the right screwdriver.
Steam game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so
it's
much
on Steam.
amazing
Early
random
access.
stuff on Steam.
Yeah.
That's why like I can't even like, you look on Steam, it's like I don't even know how we can even look at all the games that are out there because there's so much.
They
stuff.
opened the floodgates recently, and it's
Yeah.
That's-
Well, I'm
madness.
curious to hear your commentary about this because I remember specifically a time where you could, maybe not every single game, but you could play pretty much every big game in a given year.
Yeah.
And now, even keeping up with AAA is difficult.
And
every other kind of pocket of gaming has also blown up to amazing relevancy. So it's almost impossible for one human being to keep an eye, even if they love every strata of gaming, from like mobile to esports to AAA console to indie on PC to like early access. It's all moving forward and all getting big and developing its own microculture. So if the goal of the Game Awards is to celebrate gaming, doesn't that seem like it's going to become harder and more prohibitive as time goes on and all these subcultures grow their own bases?
Yeah, and we're trying to adapt to that. I think even like esports is a good example where we have a separate jury of folks that look at like best esports game and player and team because, it's like, you're right, the generalist that sort of knows every game and every genre, it's hard to find. And that's why the voting is done sort of by publication. So it's not just one person at Funhaus, it's like all you guys.
Trending gaming.
Picking our trending gamer. And that's why it's, you said it's really hard for one person to have played like all the games thoroughly throughout the year. So we do by publication. But yeah, it's, look, it's only going to get bigger, I think, and more diverse. And I think a lot about like, the mobile space, lots of awesome mobile games, but how do we, cover those? And like, there's a segment of gamers which are more casual gamers that, we don't like, I'm not sure those are the people that will watch a 2-hour award show about games no matter what. Like they will enjoy playing, the regular, a game on their phone, but it doesn't mean they're going to self-associate. Like I can't wait to spend 2 hours looking at like, the future of games. They'll hear about a cool game on the App Store and they'll download it and be like, that was fun. They're a gamer, but they may not be sort of the core gamer that would watch a show like this. But yeah, look, I want as many people as possible to watch it. As we watch two dwarves spinning plays at Los Angeles.
One day this will be
It only gets more and more random.
Wow.
Through the show.
Bigger and bigger.
Speaking of randomness.
He's a hero.
And also calling back to people that either choose the route of cynicism and deconstruction over celebrating something that's nice. I have some selections from people who decided to thoroughly decry your life's work.
Let's do it.
You can just lay into them. You can rip
I'm
into
ready.
them. I'll lay
let's
into
do it.
them for you too.
Well,
if you don't wanna.
I believe me, I have a thick skin, and I
you have to.
think a lot about this stuff. So.
And
I have an answer for everything.
okay.
You can say whatever the fuck you want on this
Exactly.
show.
Whoa, hey,
Yeah.
no
Hey.
curse on this.
Grind some gears.
Okay, so these are very what's the word? Educated, open letters.
Okay.
To you and the production
Letters.
staff.
Wow,
Yeah.
these are deep thoughts.
We're running out of time.
They're all from Lawrence.
There are a lot of people that are striking at you from the heart of their blog.
Okay.
Boy.
And these are comments that were prepared in advance of today's show. Or in real
Yeah,
time?
I went and
All
found them,
written by
copy and pasted them.
Lawrence.
Okay.
So these are excerpts.
Excerpts.
I thought it would be too easy to just pop into a YouTube anywhere and grab some malformed thing. So I picked the most budding rose of
Okay.
journalists to write this stuff. So
Fantastic.
first is Circa 2010 from Geoff Green.
Yes.
And on the self-titled post, or not self-titled, but a rant about the Spike VGAs.
Oh, I've read Geoff Green's article. Yeah, I've talked to
I'm
Jeff
sure
about
you
this. Yeah.
But now you get the chance for me to read it to you.
This was in fairness, this was about Spike's show.
Yes.
He
And
said nice things about the Game Awards since then.
Yeah, not the
Okay.
Game Awards.
I don't know if you saw those updated tweets.
I don't look at that. I only go for the best.
Yes, we'll respond to it.
But yeah, so this is the excerpt right here. Quote, really, that's what this is. 1 2-hour commercial for the big game publishers to plug their upcoming games. You can bet your ass that most of the behind-the-scenes, quote, editorial work that goes into making of the show is the wheeling and dealing with the EAs and Ubisofts and Bethesdas and the like to get those exclusive trailers on the show.
Right.
So
Yeah, so look,
that.
there's a piece of that that is true, but also like I'm really proud of a lot of the independent game developers that we get up there. Like I remember years ago at VGAs, like the Limbo guys from Playdead got to come up on stage and get an award. Whether you think it was right or wrong, we did a lot around No Man's Sky with Hello Games, and I love the smaller moments. Even last year at Game Awards, we did these really cool 3 documentary pieces on 3 independent developers that we partner with Unity on that kind of showcase their stories. So I would say that yes, we have a lot of big games on the show, but I think there's a lot of smaller developers that get a platform to talk about their games. And one thing that a lot of the indies tell me too is that they love that they can come to the Game Awards, show something or be on stage, and they don't have to pick an allegiance to one platform. So often if you're an indie developer, it's like, oh, do I sign my game with Xbox or PlayStation? Because the only way I'm getting on stage at E3 is by doing a deal with them. We're agnostic. And I'm like, I don't care who's making your game or if you're building it yourself. If it's a cool game, we'll put it on stage for you guys. So I think we're a really powerful marketing vehicle for some of the smaller games. And I tend to think that, I hope that we do a good job kind of bringing some of those to light. And even this year, you'll see some smaller games announced from studios you've probably never heard of, but they either reached out to me or I found them and said, hey, I think, we'd love to use Game Awards as a platform to expose people like new IP. So it's a balance. But yes, we want to show the new Mass Effect and show the first gameplay of that from EA. And I guess some people would say that's commercial, but same thing with going to the Warner Brothers panel at Comic-Con. That's commercial, but you want to see the new footage of, Wonder Woman or whatever.
Is that angry enough?
Boom, grinded.
No, that was actually
Grind my gears.
thoroughly diplomatic. So I found one with a little more charged language.
Oh my God! All right,
a little bit. Again, this is
Let's do
2011, so we're still in the
I'm ready.
heart of the Spike VGAs. So this is Mr. Jason Schreier in an open letter to the VGAs.
Jason from Kotaku, yeah.
Yes. After watching the 2011 Spike TV Video Game Awards this Saturday night, I can't help but wish you'd try a little bit harder to not embarrass the people you're trying to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to find the root of the problem here. You think we are dumb. You think your audience is so stupid that they'll be amused by YouTube rants and health potion gags. You think we get our jollies by watching girls bite cupcakes off conveyor belts. You think video game references make a good substitute for humor. Worst of all, you couldn't care less about what you're showing us. You don't care about the games or the people who made them. As Joystick's Justin McElroy pointed out on Twitter, if they don't give a shit about the awards, why on earth should we?
Yeah, and that's
Grind those gears.
look, I think that's all great feedback, and that I don't disagree with what he said.
Jeff disagrees with everything.
Exactly. So I'm just no, that's again, that's about, if someone's saying that about the 2015 Game Awards, I would disagree with them. But yeah, look, that
We have less cupcakes.
Exactly. That seems like you talk about all VJs, and I'm not here to defend VJs. I was a part of sort of the team that put that show on. And there are lots of war stories about why things ended up the way they were, and look. It's sort of a committee, and there are lots of people giving feedback and opinions on that. And look, that's always part of the challenge when you do those shows, is you're trying to work with people that don't necessarily get games the way we do. I could tell you stories about when we were going to announce, the Skyrim announcement. I had to call Todd Howard and say, hey, some folks at the network think that your trailer is boring. We're not sure if we should run it. And it's obviously for me and for you guys, I would never say that to Todd, but it's you're in an environment where there are lots of people that have opinions, right? And they're not wrong, they're just coming from a different perspective. So Jason's comments, it's I would say all those comments go back, the root of the issue is that it was people trying to understand an audience that weren't part of the audience. And trying to think this is what gamers might get or might want. And I've dealt with lots of writers over the years that will come in and pitch me gags that just aren't funny to, it's like the old joystick jokes and things like that. And like I lived through that for many years, not just at Spike, but at G4 and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the day, like for me, the Game Awards, it's not about being the most comedic, insane 2 hours out there. It's about like, let's just like celebrate games in like a cool, calm, collected manner and like be proud of it. And that was the tone shift, right? When I moved to Game Awards, that I said like, we don't need to focus on humor. We don't need to, do a ton of gags and stunts. Like that's not why you tune into the show. So yeah, what Jason said, like I think was absolutely, it was a forced marriage back then between kind of like Hollywood writers and producers and gamers. And, I learned a lot through that process of like what it takes to build a show like that. But of course, like, that kind of stuff, like I would cringe at too. And I would, I would always say to people, it's like sort of after VGAs, I would often have to go on kind of an apology tour to people to sort of explain like, well, we tried. Because look, it wasn't just me. It was like all these creators that were entrusting me to kind of bring their games, like The Last of Us that year to like announce that for the first time. And I think we all kind of, we grew up through that. But I will say like having worked inside that system and then being able to go out and build Game Awards, like if I hadn't gone through that sort of cauldron of all those years of VGAs, I don't think I wouldn't have been able to do what I did with Game Awards. So it just, it was growing pains. But yeah, it was believe me, it was painful those years where everyone at Spike would wake up the next morning and like read all the rants for everyone out there. And I, it's like I was only a piece of the puzzle. And I'm, now obviously I take it much more personally, and I hope people won't say those kind of things about Game Awards. But I'm ready.
Boom, grind it.
And if they happen, you'll come here and
Fantastic.
read
Do you have
all
any
the
Cyber Awards comments?
Cybermania.
Cybermania.
Prodigy, guys. Make sure.
Oh, wow. I'm on my way.
I'm sorry,
I'll be around
I didn't know
forever.
Cybermania existed until about 55 minutes ago.
In
See?
some ways, you didn't exist until
That's
about
true.
55
This
minutes
is
ago.
where
It's all
began.
clicking together.
Exactly.
Well, Jeff, thank you for coming.
That's it?
That we're out of time. Yeah, I'm
Any
sorry.
more
That's
comments
been
for
the
me?
hour.
That's the worst
That
you
was
could
all.
find
That
on
was
the
the worst
internet.
of the worst?
It wasn't the worst of the worst.
Give me the
Oh,
worst of
God.
the worst before we go. Come on.
I'd have to dig around a little bit. I don't know, man. I didn't know
say
how
mean
open you'd be
thing.
for it, so I
thought
didn't
you were
want to
gonna
get.
ask me about Doritos Pope or Angry Joe or something.
I was specifically, actually. So,
Are you like, is that a voted thing, or like, is it just like decreed
being the
by
Dorito
God?
Pope?
That I am the Doritos Pope.
Do people vote on that, or?
It's not self-appointed. But I
Yeah,
have,
and then they put up orange smoke
I'm-
from the chimney.
I'm happy to serve.
So I was planning on asking about that specifically, but you essentially answered it in a million different ways, which
Right.
is that through all the creative works you do and with the intentions you have to marry that with the force that makes it go, which
Yeah.
is some kind of marketing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the more cynical out there, and I'm just repeating what you say back to you at this point, but
Yeah.
the more cynical out there will grab that part and tell themselves that this is purity betrayed,
Right.
or paradise lost or whatever. But no, we're certainly in the business of, we have to come up with the most ridiculous, salacious titles for our videos. And daily we have commenters telling us we don't need to do that.
Right.
And yet we're seeing the data and we're seeing that this video abjectly performs better.
Yeah.
So that's our job.
That's what I mean. It's just sort of like, people have to trust us that we're sort of trying to navigate all this and figure out how to do it. But it's like, for all the awesome stuff they want to have happen at the Game Awards, like you said, it's not a charity. Like, you have to figure out the business model that works. And you guys have subscription service, like Game Awards. I try and make free, but it's like there are a bunch of different models. And like, I'm not saying we're wedded to like this is how it has to be done, but like, it's sort of even now is like really trying. Like, we're a couple weeks before the show, and like we're trying to raise the money to like make it all happen. So it's like really stressful to do it. And I think some people think like, that's what, when I was at Spike doing that, I think people looked at that as an institution that had like all this money, all this clout. Like, why do they have to do this? Now when it's kind of independent, sort of like you guys or me, it's like people are like, well, like they trust you a little bit more, hopefully. It's just like, you guys are doing this because you love it. And like when you're reading a Dollar Shave Club ad, like people kind of get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you have to do to like afford this and the setup and everything. So look, I think the audience is naturally skeptical, and doing anything that is sort of big and feels like establishment will have ultimately people that will, no matter how good it is, will always hate on it because it feels like too mainstream. And that's like, why do you need these celebrities? Why do you have these bands showing up? And it's like, it should just be only game developers and game creators and nothing from the world of Hollywood. And to me, it's like, I actually think it's kind of cool, like some of the artists we're working with this year that are going to like come in and play songs inspired by games and all that. Like when we did like Imagine Dragons and Koji Kondo, at the first Game Awards. Like that was fucking amazing. And I was just like, that is what I live for, is like moments like that. So if we can use the show as a platform to create those cool moments, sort of like Kanye coming to E3, like I'm all about that. And hopefully that's a contribution I can make by bringing everyone together.
Actually, I've got one final question.
Okay.
It's not a terrible YouTube comment, as much as I wish I'd
Not a
prepared
challenge.
worse. It could be a challenge, depending on how
Okay.
you want to see it. So, one thing that I found interesting from both, consuming games media to then making it, is it's sort of like deconstructing an engine. You can drive a car, and most people that drive a car involuntarily conjure this image of how an engine works, and it gets out there.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious from your perspective, when you've had people challenge you and say the Game Award shouldn't be done this way,
Right.
and here are the reasons why, and then they start to tell you how the business works.
Yeah.
What is, to your knowledge, the least accurate, most superstitious accounting of how games media works that somebody's explained to you before?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question, because you're right. A lot of people sort of look at the final product and don't kind of understand all the elements of it. And like even with Game Awards, people always say like, well, you should have just like given out every award for 2 hours. People will complain, you didn't give out every award, you didn't have an acceptance speech for every award. And I'm just like, well, but like you have to think about the program. And it's like if a game wins 6 awards, do you need the same person getting up 6 times? And it's like, I get it if you want to be like a completionist, that's what you should do. But like I'd rather like have a really compact, tight 2-hour award show that still recognizes everyone. So those kind of things like always annoy me, because I'm like, you say you want this, but you don't actually want
you
this.
don't know
Like
what
if
you
we
want.
did it, then you'd be like, oh, well, it's way too long. And that's like criticized for the first Game Awards, it's like too long. So there's a lot of that where it's like people think they know what they want, but like having been through the trenches and done this, like I kind of know what does and doesn't work, and hopefully people will trust me. But yeah, look, I mean, the general sense of kind of, there's just a general mistrust of institutions and people of any level of power right now in the world. And that's always something that, I face because I'm sort of part of like the establishment, right? It's like I've been, covering
man.
games
Yeah.
for so long and doing big kind of, high budget things like Game Awards. That's been, so there's always a sense, I think, that people think, everyone's kind of on the take or something, or not being honest about stuff. And like in this world, it's like there's so many options, like, even with like game reviews, it's like if someone gives a game a 9 and everyone else gives it a 6, it's like you're sort of going to be outed by like, the natural order of things. So those types of things I think are always like, I'm amazed how many people think that there's this kind of mass collusion behind the scenes that's going on.
Well,
Which
can
is
you
not the
remember
case.
one specifically? So I'm sure people have
Think.
accused you of taking checks directly from Bethesda, from Ubisoft, from
Yeah.
Todd Howard himself, throwing bags of money at you.
I mean,
Which
look-
one just made you just like back away from Twitter for a sec and be like, how did you even get there?
Yeah, look, I mean, even like the, even back with the Doritos Gate stuff and everything, I think people kind of assumed that was some, massive corruption where I was being paid off by Microsoft or something, and it actually had nothing to do with Halo. It was actually something tied to like a Pepsi deal, and that was me trying to like get these brands wanting to do more in gaming. Because I think a lot of people, when that came out, there was a sense of like, oh, this was a shining example of how the games media is in bed with the gaming companies. And actually, it was the exact opposite. It was trying to get non-endemic brands interested in doing more in gaming, so the gaming media was less reliant on the game publishers to be a part of it. Because if you can get, Doritos or Mountain Dew to sponsor something, it means you don't have to get EA or Bethesda or Activision to sponsor it. So it was always tough at the time because people assumed that it was sort of furthering their objection to the closeness between games media and games companies, when in fact what I had tried to do, and I still try to do, is like get companies that aren't involved. Like, it's better for Dollar Shave Club to support this podcast than for you to be reading an ad about how amazing Watch Dogs 2 is the game of the year or something like that.
That's a different
right?
show we do.
Yeah, we actually we have done that. It was for Battlefield. though.
Me personally, I would love to be associated with any kind of snack food. Like
But
that
honestly,
was
part
my
of the thing with like
I'm trying.
Doritos and Mountain Dew, I think it reinforces this stereotype of sort of, gamers, it's like Doritos and Mountain Dew are seen as like the, the nerdy gamer
Yeah.
food, and people like don't, they want premium brands to be associated with gaming. So I get it. But yeah, that whole thing was like, it was amazing to see how people interpreted that. And look, it's all transparent now, right? It's all on the internet. You can see this, and it's like, everyone can debate and discuss
Hashtag ad on Twitter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's also that's the other type of thing is like they're all lots of influencers now that are being paid to make YouTube videos about games, and it's like 10 years ago, if any gaming publication did that directly, like people would be pitchforks out, and now it's like, oh yeah, this guy got paid thousands of dollars to like make a gameplay video.
It's part of EA's like special club
right
thing, yeah.
And those people they get paid to make a video, and then they get to monetize the video on top of that, and it's like there's lots going
Adam's
on
life
there.
is great.
Exactly. So that's the type of stuff. It's like look, everyone is entitled to have their opinion about stuff, and I think as long as folks are transparent about like who's involved, who's investing in this stuff, it's fair. But I think that those types of things always surprise me, that people think they know how everything works, and they're entitled to their opinion. But it's good to have like podcasts and things like this to be able to like talk about these layers and elements. People can understand this stuff. Because sometimes I think people just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know where to go, and they don't know who to talk to kind of understand this. So it just spirals up into a thread on a forum or a Twitter thread, and people just you sort of sit there and watch the bouncing ball, and you don't even want to jump in. And that's part of the thing with Game Awards.
Unless you get invested yourself, then they just tear you apart.
That's the toughest thing, honestly, with like Game Awards. Like we're so busy. It's like if people are concerned about things, like we don't have time to like jump into these debates because we're like 2 to 3 weeks away from the show. That was even like last year. There was a controversy at Game Awards. We did, people thought we didn't have enough female judges on the panel or enough female voices, and it's like there were tons of females involved in the show, and we did the show. All that commentary sort of disappeared because people saw like, well, a lot of women won awards and were on stage and a part of it, but it's like people just jump to conclusions, and I always think like the show, especially in Game Awards, like it will speak for itself, and when people tune in, hopefully they're going to have a great time, feel it's representative of the industry, and if not, I'll be fired, and someone else will make the awards show.
You have to fire yourself.
Fire myself, exactly.
Jeff,
Elise, what are you doing next December? Come on back.
All right, well, man, unfortunately we're out of time. We were getting some
Just
really...
as Herbie Hancock is playing us
Oh,
off.
there it is.
No.
With Alice Cooper? No, I thought it was Alice Cooper. but it's not.
Some demon lord, yeah.
I got to be honest, though, that particular topic of the relationship between advertisers and media producers and then the perception of innocence of media is very fascinating to me. So maybe someday we'll get to keep
Can
talking.
we talk about this on Jeff's show on Thursday?
Oh,
It's a long
maybe.
topic.
Yeah, we'll strong arm it in.
Will we have time?
I don't know.
Later this week?
But we encourage
We'll
you
see.
guys to watch the Game Awards premiering December 1st.
Yep.
So what are the website destinations for that? Where can you watch it?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Xbox Live, PSN, Steam, Snapchat Live Story. Yeah.
Good luck not watching
Yeah,
it.
Exactly.
not watch
It's pretty much every
Yeah.
live stream platform.
Yeah.
you can watch it.
Dreams.
And full disclosure, Game Awards did not ask us to have Jeff on the show.
Oh, yeah.
This is not an ad deal. We just wanted to have
We
Jeff
reached
on the
out to him
show.
directly, and he said yes.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts and stops. So
Yeah.
thank you for
So-
bringing that up, because Lord knows somebody would have
Yeah,
concocted
somebody's
that.
gonna-
And there's some
Interesting
massive collusion
Conspiracy.
campaign. It's actually part of a big Game Awards sponsorship.
Oh,
this
no.
whole show.
I'm so
It's
rich.
like-
We're
And
very corrupt.
if you want to see media that is truly reverent of games, your Final Hours series is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Any plans to do another
Yeah,
one?
hopefully you'll have time to get
I
make
hope
another
so.
one of those
Yeah.
someday.
Look, we were gonna do I was gonna do a No Man's Sky one, and that kind of fell apart.
That would be fascinating now.
Yeah.
It would be
If
and I
there
think
were time
it's,
for
look, it was something we looked at, and it became clear that I think that wasn't going to get the sort of transparency and candor that I wanted around that from the developers. So that got put on the shelf, but could be brought back at some point. And yeah, look, I love Final Hours, and I'd love to do another one. You have to find the right story with the right team that's willing to be honest. And last one I did was Titanfall, sorry, which was a great story about Respawn leaving Activision, and an amazing story to see what those guys went through. And I'm so happy that Titanfall 2 turned out to be such a great game. But yeah, I definitely will go back and do it. It's the type of thing where I always want to only do them when it's the right story at the right time, and it's not like, hey, I'm going to do one every 3 months, and I got to find a game even if it's not right. So nothing in production now. And end of the year, it's always tough because of Game Awards, so I don't have time to do it. But next year, I'd love to do one. So if you guys have any
They're the best.
games you'd like, thank you.
Great.
Oh, sure.
Just get that new Metroid.
Do a Final
whenever
Hours
that's
on
coming.
Metroid.
Yeah.
We need Valve
For
to make
me.
another game. It's like then we'll be ready to
Prey
go.
would be fascinating.
Yeah, Prey.
But
That'd
that's
be good.
probably close to done, right?
Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
That'd be hot.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's coming, right? To
wherever
Switch.
that
He made it. Yeah, or Yves Guillemot, didn't he make that tweet that's coming?
Yeah, and he said at
Or you go to
E3 that like
Facebook post.
it's in development. I
Yeah.
just who knows when it's going to come out.
And that trailer came out, what,
Stranded.
2007?
Who knows?
Doesn't-
Tune into the Game Awards, at least.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So tune into the
Just
Game
kidding.
Awards for all your nothing.
James says Death Stranding.
Death Stranding.
Geoff,
Probably
thank
gonna
you.
be an interesting story.
Damn, we're out of
Yes.
time. Jeff, thanks again.
Sorry.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Good to hang. Appreciate it.
If you're watching live, stay tuned for the post show. Jeff, you don't want to stick around for that. It's just a bunch.
post show?
It's us looking at fan art of ourselves.
Mostly Elise.
It's the most masturbatory thing in the world.
Oh my God,
so-
I wish. I got too much Game Awards
Yeah,
madness.
you got a lot of work to do. So thank you for taking time out to come and chat with us. Hopefully
Yeah,
we get to
thanks,
do it
guys.
again.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah,
Cool.
but
Yeah.
stay
Thanks,
tuned,
man.
everybody.
Guys.
We'll be right back. Opening, rich assholes doing fucking rich shit, being snooty. By that I mean that country club maybe, lots of expensive cars. Somebody in the intro has to mistreat a working class individual, so he like throws the keys to like the bellhop and like bashes off his face. And then they turn to each other and like, then they go in and like drink champagne.